From the dragons of Skyrim to the Imga of Valenwood, the Slode of Thras to the Hist of the Black Marsh, Tamriel is home to countless fascinating creatures. Among these creatures, there is one group whose power and mystery is as great as any other. These beings, who have lived on Tamriel since long before recorded history, are the Faerie. The Faerie, otherwise known as sprites or fae, are a group of beings that once inhabited Tamriel, and most notably the Summerset Isles. Much of what we know about them comes from a book called The Faerie that was available in Daggerfall. This book claims that tales of the Faerie are found in every culture of the Empire, and yet their existence has never once been mentioned by an actual character in the Elder Scrolls. The book also states that the nature of Faerie, and I quote, seems to flit from one story to the next with the same variation. It is difficult to comment on the meaning of this rather obscure statement, but one interpretation is that each story is a kalpa. For those of you who haven't heard the term kalpa before, a kalpa is a cycle of the birth and death of the Elder Scrolls world, and supposedly at the end of each kalpa, the world resets again to the Dawn era. So under this interpretation, with each cycle of the world, the Faerie play a different role and impact the Elder Scrolls universe in a different way. The only other books in which the Faerie are mentioned are a book in Morrowind entitled Poison Song Book 1, and another book in Daggerfall called A Scholar's Guide to Nymphs. The latter indicates that the language of Faerie sounds like the language of nymphs, but aside from this, gives us no more information on them. There are many different variants of Faerie. First are Pixies, or Willowkey as they are called by the Redguards. They are described as glimmering sparks and whimsical pranksters. Next are Sylphim, who are said to appear surrounding more powerful Faerie. The Illyadi are a species of Faerie said to be giants taller than trees, with a mass of eyes that covers their heads. They were defeated by the Aldmer long ago, and are portrayed regularly in the paintings and tapestries of the Summerset Isles. Nereids are sea spirits of the province of Valenwood, and considered to be Faerie by many scholars. Spriggans, who are found all across Tamriel in many provinces, are also regarded as a type of Faerie. The Chonus are a variant of Faerie considered to be godlike beings, but nothing is known of them aside from this. Gheateus are also godlike beings that appear as a man or a group of men formed from the earth. They too were defeated by the Aldmer long ago, and are depicted in the tapestries of Somerset. Sygria are yet another godlike species of Faerie, and often appear surrounded by a host of Sylphim. Other types of Faerie include Nephrines, Dryads, NIxads, and Centaurs, but nothing is known of these creatures aside from their existence and their names. Finally, it is stated that intelligent trees, brooks, rocks, and mountains once existed, and were also types of Faerie. According to an Altmer scholar from the Second Era, Faerie can be organized into a hierarchical chain, with Pixies at the bottom and Gheateus, Sygria, and Chonus at the top. The same scholar theorized that elves are a part of this chain, and only slightly above Pixies, which greatly offended many Altmer. He also claimed that while less powerful Faerie tend to appear alongside stronger ones, Faerie do not command one another, and act according to their own whim. In sum, we know very little about the Faerie, but there's no doubt that they were fascinating creatures. How and why they disappeared is entirely unknown, and whether or not they could return in the future is also unknown. But if they were to somehow reappear, as the dragons did not too long ago, the world of the Elder Scrolls would never be the same.